Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of Crosshairs, the program at ThePrint, where, as you know, we discuss all things national and regional security. I'm delighted to be joined again by Gul Bukhari, who comes to us from London. Gul is a well-known columnist and writer, as well as with the distinguished editor, journalist, and old friend Murtaza Solangi, who's joining us from Pakistan today. And as we end up doing far too often on this show, because it's the most interesting thing happening, we're again discussing Pakistan. And in particular, the somewhat odd development this week where Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif seemed to make a heartfelt call for peace and then caveated it, or rather his office caveated it less than 24 hours afterwards, saying that no forward movement was possible until India rolled back its position on Kashmir. Gul Bukhari, first question to you. What on earth do we make of this? We seem to have a lot of Pakistani leaders who say a nice thing and then roll back. We had Prime Minister Imran Khan, who supported it in his capacity as a minister, and then with his other hand the next day struck it down, saying Kashmir. Now Shehbaz Sharif doing the same thing. What do we make of this?
Thank you, Praveen. I think we'll go down the history a little bit later into the show because peace has been elusive. There seem to be different stakeholders, where one wants to go forward, another one pulls it back. And there's been a history of that happening. But what happened is, interestingly, when in the past, civilian prime ministers, took a step forward for peace, it was the military that sort of pulled it back. And on the face of it, again, it may seem as if Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif made this statement, and typically it would be that he would, in the past, he would get a slap on the wrist and then turn around and do what he did, like his office said, no, unless Article 370. But somehow, I've tried to understand it and find out a little bit about it. Somehow this time, it does not seem that that is what has happened. It seems that the current military leadership is continuing with General Bajwa's policy of trying to make it trade-centric, the relationship, rather than, Kashmir-centric or enmity-centric. So I do not think that Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif winged it on his own. He's not even the type of person who would do that. He is close to the military and does not step out of the military's comfort zone. To me, it seems that perhaps people within his own circle, within his own party, felt that, we're going to be facing an election, God knows when, latest by October. Certainly Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, we're going to go into those elections very soon. Even the national general election may be brought forward, going by the instability that Imran Khan continues to create. And so he may have been advised that this may not be a very good idea in an election year. And therefore, the statement, denying or clarifying it came. But I will add one little thing here. Right now, on the voters' mind, to be honest, if somebody has advised him to draw back, etc., it was really bad advice. Because I think the voters really care more about the inflation, the economy, jobs, more than Kashmir, to be very honest. So I think there has been a misreading.
Murtaza, I want to draw you out on that a little bit further. Firstly, do you agree with the Gul's argument that this was essentially a political calculation or miscalculation, if you like? And secondly, can you, for an Indian audience, unpack how important Kashmir really is to Pakistani electoral politics? Is this just warding off some sort of, nutcase fringe element associated with Imran Khan? Or is Kashmir still an issue that has electoral significance in Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa?
The answer to your first question is that it was some kind of preemptive move by the close confidants of Shehbaz Sharif, who after this interview with Al Arabiya advised him to issue some kind of clarification to shield him and his party from possible attacks by Imran Khan. Now, when it comes to Kashmir holding any importance in Pakistan's politics, especially in an election year, it all depends upon the attitude of the security establishment in Rawalpindi. If they want to oppose any reconciliation with India, then it will be very difficult for any political party to do it. But if they somehow facilitate or support any reconciliation, then it will not make any difference. Because at the people's level, people do have sympathy with the people of Kashmir that's controlled by India. And there is a groundswell of sympathy. But there is no appetite for war. So if it's all up to the political leadership and the common man, they won't give a hoot about any jingoistic politics. And this interview would have gone just a normal thing. But since we have a history, we have a baggage where political governments are destabilized, Shehbaz Sharif is not a very strong political leader. Unlike his elder brother, who can take a gamble, Shehbaz won't. So that's why probably that clarification was issued. But in an election year, both in India and Pakistan, political leadership tries to avoid any footsie with the Indian leadership. So it's more of a matter of being a little careful. But when it comes to the vibes coming from Rawalpindi, I think there is some kind of realization that all these old designs won't work in the future. So if there is any consensus on Indian side, and we have a consensus on our side, we hope, and I think that the economic interaction between India and Pakistan will pave the way for untying a lot of the tangled knots that we have.
That's nicely put, Murtaza. And Gul, there were two elements to what you said. One was, or both of you have said actually, one is, of course, the narrowly political angle that has to do with the parties itself and the political leadership. And I'll come to that. But the other element of that is what the generals are thinking. Now, the previous army chief, General Qamar Javed Bajwa, is known to have had all kinds of, back channel toing and froing with India, various third countries reputedly involved like the UAE, nudging both sides together. One of the things we've seen in the Indian media is this speculation of late that the new army chief, in order to build his own legitimacy, to distinguish his legacy from that of General Bajwa, might be less inclined to push this rapprochement thing with India further. And, especially on things like Kashmir. Is that a perception that you share, that there's going to be some change in the thinking of the military, or will at the most this be a question of optics, if you like, not of the substance of the military's thinking?
I think, first of all, whether it's generals or prime ministers, they start thinking of legacy perhaps midway into their term, right?
Right.
And he's right at the very start. For him, the challenge is more keeping things together, consolidating his own power within the military, and trying to make it work with the civil setup, really I would guess that he would try to make it work, because really there are no alternatives anymore. they don't have another Imran Khan up their sleeve. So, whatever there is, it's right there and they have to work with it. Apart from maybe posturing, he would really not, he cannot afford to have a very different policy towards India and Kashmir from that of General Bajwa. I mean, the economy of the country dictates that. The other thing is that Murtaza and I was basically analyzing, and Murtaza actually had the information, and he kind of confirmed what I had said, that it's somebody within Shehbaz Sharif's own party or his close circle, and Murtaza literally confirmed it. The funny thing is that, as he said, spot on, that in the public, nobody will give a hoot about it. In actual fact, if Shehbaz Sharif moves towards peace, and that results in some trade, that will actually help the economy, which is the real problem with the people. This is why I think people advising him are completely misreading the situation. The establishment, as he said, in an election year, if the establishment is with you, you can go ahead, no problems. And it seems like the establishment doesn't have any issues, but they're misreading the public mood. The public will not mind if we start importing onions or dals or wheat at a much lower rate from India. It will actually help this government because the people don't have a people-to-people animosity or whatever, despite all the sympathies with the Kashmiri people, despite all of that. But people do realize that the disparity is such that there is not much that we can do. Even Imran Khan's government is standing outside at 12 o'clock once on a Friday, and that was that. It is really a very sad situation. And so therefore, I personally do not think that Asim Munir will have a very different policy. And there are some rumblings that talks in the background do continue as we speak.
That's completely fascinating. And I want to take this further to politics, Murtaza. So one of the sort of traditional sort of tropes in Indian thinking has been that Kashmir is a very charged issue in Pakistan. It's not easy for leaderships to give up on the Kashmir issue. But wearing your, analytical, slightly historical cap, Nawaz Sharif 20 years ago in the Musharraf years started pushing quite hard for a rapprochement with India. He did that not once when he, lost his government, arguably over differences with Pervez Musharraf on this issue, but twice. He again ended up in trouble with the army under Prime Minister Modi. Would a shrewd politician looking at him conclude that, look, I should try and be a historic peacemaker? Or would a smart politician say, let me just forget about this and leave this to the generals to work out? Why should I get involved in it? In other words, is there any political incentive to bite this, as you say, knotty problem?
There is one. The economic meltdown in Pakistan. That is the biggest incentive for the political leadership to engage with India. So we will keep chanting the slogans of our brotherhood with our Kashmiri brothers. We would just keep criticizing Article 370 and 35A, but that does not change the ground realities. Despite that, we would be willing to engage with India on the issues that we can resolve and wait for the time when the issues that we can't resolve today will resolve tomorrow. We will not sacrifice our today over a tomorrow that we don't know will come or not.
Okay, and I just will briefly interrupt you to let our audience know that this issue has been lingering since Murtaza and I were young men, which is more years ago than we care to remember. But please do go on.
So there is an incentive, but I think next year is an election year for India too. So, no major development can take place if there is no bipartisan consensus on both sides of the border. It will only happen in a better way. Even in Imran Khan's time, we have seen engagement on the line of control and working boundary. And all those casualties that were killing young men on both sides ended. We saw Kartarpur in Imran Khan's time. So if, things can happen even under Imran Khan, who declared him as the ambassador of the people of Kashmir, then many things can happen.
Solangi Sahab, I think with regard to the two events you've spoken specifically, call it Bajwa time, not Imran Khan time.
I want to, Gul, push maybe a slightly pessimistic view of this. We're all saying Pakistan's economic problems, maybe that's brought about a change of heart in the generals. But, since the 1970s, why since the 1970s, even earlier, politicians on both sides, leaders on both sides have pretty much had, if you like, an understanding of how this will end, which is some form of the partition of the state of Jammu and Kashmir between two borders, maybe some sort of, free movement of peoples. And these ideas have been around for a very long time. General Musharraf and Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee were supposed to have agreed on this. Again, under, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's time, yet again in Prime Minister Modi and Nawaz Sharif, some conversations around this. But every time this seems to get stuck somewhere, are you any more optimistic that, leaving aside Kashmir, at least as Murtaza suggests, on trade, on water issues, on other climate, that the time is right, that the time is ripe for leaders in both countries to move forward on this?
I think the time has been, I don't know who the question was to, the time has been ripe for a very long time, and I think what we can bring in over here is, as you said, 4 or 5 times, it has been sabotaged. Things moved forward. The ideas have been there. But I think there is significance of an article that appeared in the press very recently by Shehzad Chaudhry. And I'd really like Murtaza's thoughts on that. For me personally, that wasn't his style of writing or anything, but the fact that it appeared under his name. And it was a ton of home truths, etc. In there. I'd really like to hear what Murtaza thinks. I think there is a thinking which is very realistic now, and this coming from under Shehzad Chaudhry's name, Air Vice Marshal Shehzad Chaudhry, who is a complete hawk, has been for his entire life, kind of indicates that there is a change of thinking, and it has arisen from the realization of the economic meltdown and finally calling a spade, finally talking about the complete impossibility of wresting a piece of land or whatever it is from a much, much, much larger power. But I'd really like to bring Murtaza in here.
Murtaza, of course, please, do you think that famous Shehzad Chaudhry article where, for those of our audience who may not have read it, basically Shehzad Chaudhry suggested that the economic disparity between India and China has become so big now that Pakistan should stop thinking about seeking parity and instead maybe seek peace on the best terms it can make. That time was not on Pakistan's side. Murtaza, do you think he was speaking? I suspect I should add that Shehzad Saab would describe himself as a pragmatist rather than a hawk. But Murtaza, would you think
this article was pragmatism?
This was an institutional consensus speaking, or just Shehzad Chaudhry's personal thoughts on this matter?
I don't think it's Shehzad Chaudhry's personal thought, because living in Islamabad and meeting people both in Rawalpindi and Islamabad, I can say with much clarity that this is institutional realization Politicians had this realization long before, but now it's coming to a national consensus that we have to look inwards. Our problems are mainly in Pakistan, and we can resolve them through our own national consensus and a change of policy towards India, towards other countries. So I think it's not Shehzad Chaudhry's personal view. He represents a major school in Pakistan's establishment. And I think this will get more life and vitality after a few months when the next army chief consolidates his power.
So, Murtaza, I'll come to you with a final question, and then ask. I have one for Gul too. And my question is this: that if there is this drastic shift we've seen some signs of the contrary. For example, we saw China over recent months dragging its feet on sanctioning some terrorists, which was attributed to Pakistan's reluctance to crack down on groups like the Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba. We've seen that the Jaish-e-Mohammed has continued to raise funds and, run a seminary. Some terrorist activity, admittedly nowhere near as bad as in past years, but some terrorism across the line of control. How would you respond to critics in the Indian strategic community who turn around and say, actually, the generals are just biding their time. They want to keep things quiet because they're on the back foot now, but the minute they get a chance, they'll be back at the game across the line of control. What would you say to Indians who make that argument?
Well, we have played this game for 7+ decades. And this game is not yielding much results given our economic conditions, especially. And on the other side, the political class will not be happy on these old games. So as much as some people would feel hawkish to play the old game, the new conditions will make it almost impossible to do that. It will not be just a fear of Indian establishment or military. Our own conditions would compel us not to play the old game.
Gul Bukhari, I'll give you the final word. Many people within Kashmir itself had expected Pakistan to play a far more aggressive role in pushing back against the constitutional changes India brought about under Prime Minister Imran Khan, and were pretty sorely disappointed by the fact, as you said, that there was one namaz after which some people came out and then it was forgotten about the week afterwards. We've seen some noises from various people around Imran Khan and Imran Khan himself in recent weeks on this, raking up this Kashmir business again. Do you think he's serious about pursuing, raising this as an issue, or this is just a little stick to try and beat the PDM government within Pakistan?
It's just a little stick. Of course, it's just a little stick. What did he actually do when he was in power? You have to go by that, right? Now, the thing is that I think it was very sad, very unfortunately, the Kashmiri people's expectations were unrealistic. If, they had in the neighborhood a superpower who could have taken strong measures to help them, then it would be maybe a little bit realistic. But they have to, your neighbor has to be economically and so on and so forth, independent and powerful to be able to help you. Just because they're always hollering and chest beating and saying, we'll do this and we'll do that, and in the end they stand up in the afternoon. So it unfortunately, the Kashmiris' expectations, I think, were very unrealistic. And I'll tell you something. On on Kashmir, I think Bajwa and Imran Khan were both on the same page. To be very honest, they did not want to do anything to annoy Modi because, as somebody, I think Murtaza mentioned, there were a lot of overtures towards India in the shape and form of Kartarpur and so on and so forth, and Prem Pitars being or phone calls, and so on and so forth. Bajwa Sahab really wanted to somehow end the isolation, right? Which Indian lobbying does manage to cause. And on the very last, on the question that you actually put to Murtaza, that what would I say to Indians who say that you've played this game many times and generals will just abide by their time? Well, the thing is that they would be correct in saying so when they refer to history. And historically speaking, Pakistan has been able to get away with doing that because, it was in strategic partnership with the US, and US always had to keep funding Pakistan or forgiving it, etc., etc. Right now, that is not the case. And I think reining in, when you referred to, Lashkar-e-Jhangvi and Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba, reining them in and doing away with their schools and their colleges and their medical and whatever is quite another thing. Dismantling them is now going to be very, very tough in and of itself. And perhaps it should be delinked a little bit, because even if there is a genuine desire to move forward with India, dismantling this apparatus is going to be something very different. And, going gung-ho on that can bring a new backlash from outfits which have never really attacked the state itself. Yes, on behalf of the state, they do attack the Shias in Pakistan, within Pakistan, but they do not attack the state itself. So now dismantling them or winding them down has to be seen as decoupled somewhat with the Kashmir policy. That's what I think.
We're clean out of time here, but that was a really fascinating discussion. And I can't hope both of you are right, if for no other reason than that Murtaza and I used to watch terrible films and eat unhealthy food together. And we, occasionally get the chance to do so overseas, but hopefully we'll be able to do it at each other's houses soon. But the upside, of course, of the conflict continuing is, Gul, we can have all our track tours in London and you can be our host. But thank you so much, both of you, for your time. And I look forward to welcoming you on this program again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.